Hello everyone, welcome back to another video and welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to be rebuilding the Veroskills website, and Veroskills is an online platform where you can learn how to code with the aid of instructors, and this video is not sponsored. So we're going to be using NextJs to build all of this out. They have an elegant website and it has some pretty cool layout, and we're also going to be building the login page as well as the sign up page, of course with no functionality to the database, but just because it actually looks very nice and it's a pretty easy build that we're going to be doing. We're going to be using NextJs, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to create our NextJs application. And so to begin right away, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my terminal, my command prompt, and then I'm going to cd into my desktop and then into a folder on my desktop that is called YT videos. And then inside here, I'm going to create a new Next.js application. So create next app, and I'm going to call it Veroskills -YT. And of course, let's remember that we need to go through these selections. So we don't want to use TypeScript. We want ESLint, we want Tailwind, we want the source directory. And then, wait, what? Okay, this is correct. Yes, we want the source directory and then the app router, and then we want the default. Okay, yeah. So let this run, and then once it finishes running, we are going to continue. So once that finishes running, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say code, and it is called Veroskills-YT, and this is going to open up an instance of Visual Studio Code into this folder that we have just created. And you can say this is what we have for our workspace. We have the public folder and we have the source folder as well as the app folder inside the source folder. And so the first thing that I want to do is I want to grab all the images that we're going to need. And so inside the source folder, I'm going to create a new folder and I'm going to call this images. And then inside this images folder, I'm going to go ahead and download all the images that we're going to need, and then I'm going to place them inside here. So in order to get them, all you need to do is just go ahead and clone the repository and you're going to have access to these images. Okay, so I have all the images downloaded and I've placed them inside this images folder, and you're going to be able to access them from the repository. Now, the first thing that I want to do is I noticed that on the login page or on the sign up page, there are these icons. So I want to go ahead and install a package that is called React Icons, which is going to help us to get those icons. So if this is going to load in, I'm going to say npm install, and it's called React Icons. And then we can let that run. And so the first thing that we're going to do is inside our app folder, we are going to go inside the page.js. And this is the default landing page that comes with Next.js. You can see that they're using Tailwind, but I want to go ahead and remove everything inside here all the way to the bottom. And then I just want to return an h1 that says hello world, and then we're going to have that. Let's go ahead and save it. We can remove this, and then when we save it, then let's go ahead and open up our terminal, and let's say npm run dev, which is going to open up our local development server on localhost 3000, and then we can just open it up in our web browser to see what we're going to have. And we should have only an h1 that says hello world. And there we go. You can see that we have hello world. Now, the reason why it is a dark screen is because in our style sheet, in our global CSS, we have light mode and dark mode enabled. So let's go ahead and just remove all of this because we no longer need it. And then let me check. We need to get a certain font here. So the font should be called, really? What am I doing? So the font is called HK Grotesque. I don't know whether we're going to be able to find that font. And this other one is called Inter. So let's go ahead into fonts.google.com, and then let's go ahead and search for HK Grotesque to see whether we're going to find it. No, it doesn't exist. So grotesque. We can use this one. This looks the closest to it. And then apart from that, we also, what are these? Remove. let's go ahead and grab so this is for the heading. So we want a bold font for the headings. So for the headings, let's go ahead and grab the bold 700. And then let's go ahead and search for another font that is called Inter. And then for Inter font, we want to grab this one. We want the regular 400. So this one. And then let's use the import tab. Let's copy this. And then let's just paste it above. And then below this, we're going to specify for our new universal selector for the font family to be Inter with a fallback of sans serif. And then below this, we're going to specify the H1s, the H2s, the H3s, the H4s, H5, and H6 to have a font family that is called Hankin Grotesque with a fallback of sans serif. There we go. And then just to specify this, I mean, the font weight is already going to be bold because they're headings. And because we only have one font weight of 700 here, so they're going to be bold by default, but I just still like specifying this. Now below this, let's specify the paragraphs to have a line height of about 1.8 to separate the lines out just a bit. And then for the body, we're going to specify a background color, and I'm going to grab this background color here using my tool here that is called Color Picker Eyedropper. So we're going to grab this color. Let me copy it, and then let me specify it here. And then the text is going to be white for the heading. So let's specify the color here to be white, but the text for the paragraphs is going to be just a bit different. So here, let me go ahead and grab, just confirm something. Let's see if I can grab a font here, the color here. Let me grab this one. So copy and then paste it here. And then let's see, what else do we need for the global styles? We need this button. So the button, we're going to grab this color for the button. So copy. And then below this, I'm going to specify a class of BTN. And I'm going to give it a background color of this. And then for the rest of the classes, I'm going to use @apply, which is a tailwind directive. And we can also place this inside the @apply, and I'm going to show you how. But for now, let me just say that we're going to have a padding on the Y of 3 and a padding on the X of 8, with a very slight rounded border for the buttons, with a text of white for the color, and then a font of bold. I don't know whether that is going to apply. And then on hover, let's give it a slight box shadow. And then on hover, we want the shadow to be this very same color. So let me just copy this here. And then let me see, let's have a transition of all the properties with a duration of 150 milliseconds. And if you want to add in this background color in the @apply, all you have to do is say BG and then pass this inside parentheses. So you can just cut it out and place it like this. And that's how you add in your own custom colors or whatever in Tailwind. So let's go ahead and save this. And then inside the page.js, once I save that, you'll notice that this should now go back to white. If it does, but it doesn't go back to white for some reason. Oh wait, we specified this here. So if I disable it, then it's going to go back to white, right? And then we can enable this because this is our background color. And then now let's go ahead and do this. Let's change this title, right? So the way you do that in NextJS version 13 is inside the layout. You can just go ahead and change your title here. And let me see what the title is. It just says Veroskills. So Veroskills. And then we can leave the description as it is, but you can change it if you want. This is going to change the meta description. And then this is going to just remain like that. Okay. So let's save it. Now back inside page.js, and I've just realized something. We could have done this for the fonts, and actually the Inter font is the default font that comes with NextJS version 13. So having this inside here, where is it? Having this inside here actually does nothing, because we can remove it, and when we remove it, this is going to apply for the text. So you can have it inside here or you can remove it. It doesn't really matter. Just make sure that if you have it in your CSS, then you come and remove it from here so that it doesn't affect your styles. Now let's go ahead and let's begin building this out. So the first thing that we need to do is just place this to the left and place this to the right, so that they're going to go like so. And then I've just realized that let's go back into our CSS just for a moment. Inside here, let's say add apply, and let's apply a padding on the X of what is it, of 4, and a padding on the Y of 8, just to push all of this inwards and downwards just a bit. And then I'm going to give it a max width of about 7XL, just so that it doesn't push all the way to the end, and you're going to be able to see it once I add in the margin here. So MX auto, we should now bring it somewhere here. There we go, so that now it doesn't limit all the way to the end. And I think that's good enough. I think that's good enough. Now let's go ahead and begin building this out. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my workspace here, and then inside the source folder, I'm going to create a new folder called components. And then inside components, we want to first build out our header on top. So we want to build this out first. So here, let's create a new file called header.js. And because we're using NextJs, this doesn't have to be capital. It can be small. So you can call it header.js. Just make sure that when you are initializing your component, you make this capital. So we're going to have that. And then inside our header, we're going to do this. We want to return first of all the header element, and then we're going to get a div, and then inside this div we're going to get our image component, and then the image, the source for this image is going to be coming from the logo which we're going to get. And then when you're using the image component, you need to specify a width as well as a height. So the width for this, I just want to specify a width of about 100, and then the height for this, I'm going to specify a height of about 30. Now let's go ahead and get this. So let's say we're going to import the logo from, and it's coming from art/images/logo.svg. Is it an svg image? Yes, it is. So logo.svg, and then oops, and then I can just reference it inside here and say get the logo. And when I save this, I can go into my page.js, and then now instead of returning an h1 that says hello world, I can just return a fragment here and then return the header component, and then make sure to import it from components header. And then when I save it, then we should be able to see our logo somewhere. So image is not defined, we need to import image. So just say control spacebar. You can just click here and say control spacebar. It's going to give it this drop down, and then we want to import this image that is coming from next image. And then when I save it, then we should be able to see it here once it reloads. And it still says image is not defined. What's the problem? Really? Okay, so I found out the reason why we were getting that error, and the reason is right here. Remember how the first file I created was a header.js, but it was capital? So in our page.js, which is our main file, I referenced that file, which I later deleted and renamed to a smaller capital H. So this is referencing the wrong file, and therefore it is updating the wrong component. So what you need to do is just change this into a small h, and then save it. And then now we can go back into our header.js just to make sure that this is working. And then we can try to add in some bit of text. So learn 20. And then once it reloads, then we should be able to see it right there. And so now let's continue building out our header. So let's remove this. And then let's check out the design. So we need this part and this part. Let's actually check how this looks on mobile. And on mobile, it looks like, so only the login, we can only see the login on mobile. Let me just check this out. Okay. So let's do this. We want these 3 items to be inside separate containers so that when we use flex on them, we can display them as justify between, and then they're going to appear as 1, 2, and 3. So the way we do that is by adding in a nav here, which is going to be for our navigation. And then we're going to have 3 list items here. They're not going anywhere, so we can have them as list items or you can have them as buttons. And then the first one says recruitment. And then the second one says learning. And then finally community. And then after this UL, I want to have a div with 2 buttons. So I can have it as a div or as a UL actually. Let me use a UL with two list items, and then I want them to be buttons as well. And then this first button says login, and then the second button says get started. Is it capital S? Okay, small s, get started. Okay, so we have that as our header. We can save it, and then this is what we're going to have on the screen right here. It is blacked out currently, so let's fix that. We're going to go inside the header, and then we're going to give the header a class name of flex and item center and justify between, which is going to bring all of this up to somewhere here. So it's right here, but you can't see it, so let's change the text to white. And then what we're going to do that is we're going to go inside our CSS, and right where we have, actually not, let me just declare it where, let me go below this. Let me say that for the UL, I want the list style type to be none so that we don't have any bullets. And then for the list items, I want the color to be white. So it is going to change this color into white so that we can actually see what we are doing. And then let's continue to style this out in our header.js. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to go inside this UL, and we want to give this UL a class name of flex, which is going to cause this to go into raw form right there, if it does sometime today. Oh, I haven't saved it. So right there. And then we want to add a gap of about 8 to separate out all these items so that they're going to be separate. Let me see how this looks. Yeah, it does look okay. We can use 8 or 10. I think 10 is much better. And then we want to increase, perhaps maybe increase the font size of this text, but you can have it as it is, there's no problem. And then let's do the same for this bottom UL. So we're going to give this a class name equals to flex, and then a gap of 10, gap dash 10. And then we're going to have this on the screen. So let's tell out this second button. This needs to have a bold font as well as this one, and then this needs to be styled in the following way. So let's do the first one because the first one is easier. Let's give this a class name of font bold, and then on hover we want to reduce the opacity to about 75, because as you can see that when we hover over this, then the opacity reduces. So that's basically what we are doing here, right here. And then let's add a slight transition to it. So I'm going to say transition dash opacity, and then we're going to say for a duration of 150 milliseconds, so that we're going to have a slight transition right there. And then for this second button, we're going to say give this a class name, and we're going to say give it a border all around. So border, which is going to do this. Let me see. Okay, and then let's say border slate dash 600. Is that a correct one? Maybe let's use 400, and then actually not 700. Yeah, let's work with 700. Let's give it a padding on the Y of about what, 2, a padding on the X of 4, a rounded of large, and then on hover we want the BG to be white, the background to be white, and then on hover we want the text to be slate dash 800. Actually, is it even slate 800? It's not slate 800. It's not slate 800. On hover we want the color to be what? I think this one. Let's copy this, and then inside our header we're going to remove this and then just add this inside some square brackets, and the text is going to take that color on hover. And then let's change this into font bold. So font dash bold, let's say transition dash all with a duration of 150 milliseconds, so that it just transitions inside nicely. Okay, I don't like this slate color, so let me do this. Let's copy this, and then on the border slate let's substitute it here, and then let's add some opacity here about 99. Let me see how that looks. That's barely visible. Oh wait, or I can't do that. I probably can't do that, so let's just reduce this a bit. Barely visible, still barely visible. Let's reduce it even more, maybe there. And still not yet. How about that? Let's just work with that. Let's work with that. Yeah, let's just work with that. Now Let's fix this. See how the button moves upwards? It's because I've added padding on this button and this needs to be aligned to the center. So the way you fix that is just by going here and saying items dash center, which is going to bring it downwards right there. So that is our header complete. Now we just need to deal with our hero section. So for the hero section, I'm going to go inside my components. I'm going to create a new file here that is called hero.js. And then inside the hero.js, I'm going to say rfc. And then I'm going to change this into a capital H. And then I'm going to return a fragment first of all. Oops. A fragment. And then inside this fragment, I want to return a section with 2 articles. So the first article is going to be this text that we have here. So let me see. Yeah, we're going to have the text. So the text is an H1 that says this. So let me copy this and paste it here. But notice how this image needs to be added inside. I want to try and see whether I can add this inside a superscript. So this superscript is going to house our image, and the image, the source for this is going to be from the stars that we're going to import. The width for this is going to be about 80, and the height is also going to be about 80. And then let's go ahead and import the image. So we're going to say import stars from art/images / and it should be called stars.svg. So stars.svg. And then below this, sorry, not below, oh wait a minute, yes, below this we want to get our paragraph, and that is my phone ringing. Okay, so let's continue. I was copying this and then I'm going to paste it below our h1 inside the paragraph, and then below the paragraph, and that is my phone again. And now let's continue again. So below our paragraph, we want to go ahead and add in this button, and this button has a nice hover effect. See where it looks kind of like a neon background. So below this, we're going to add in a button, and I'm going to create a custom class here. Did I create it? A btn, this one, that's the one I want. So a button with a class of btn, and this button says book a demo. And then let's go ahead and below this article, we're going to create another article, which is going to be this image. So for this image, we're going to add it inside an image tag. The source for this is going to be the hero that we're going to import. And then the width for this is going to be, I'm going to give it a huge width. So I'm going to say 1920, even though I know that this is not 1920. And let me just say, let's say 1200 for the sake of it. And then the height is also going to be, let me see, this is almost square, right? Or is it? I think it is. So let's give it a height of 1200 as well. And then let's go ahead and import this image. So below, let's just copy this down, change this to hero. And then this image should be called what? Hero.png. So hero.png. And I've just realized we need to import this as well. So let's go ahead and say import image. Is it a named import? Is it a named import or what? Let me confirm something. How did I import it? So it's this one. Copy and paste it here. And then below this image, we want to go ahead and add in this text. So let's copy this text. Let's add it inside a paragraph. And we're going to make this paragraph just slightly bigger. So let's save this. And then inside our page.js, let's go ahead and render the hero. Make sure you import it on top. And then save it. And let's see what we have on the screen. And we have that. There we go. So looking nice. So everything is working correctly. Now let's just go ahead and begin to style all of this out. Now I want to style it out using the mobile version first. And I just realized we didn't do that for the header. So we're going to fix that as well. So let me place this side by side, and then let's go back into our hero.js file. And then inside this h1, let's go ahead and give it a class name of text-4xl for mobile screens. And then for large screens, we're going to say text-6xl. And then we're going to give it a margin on the bottom of 8 to push away from this text from the paragraph text. And then for this one, I'm going to give it a class name and say that for large screens, then the text should be large just to make it slightly bigger. And then let's also give it a margin bottom of 8 to push it away from this button. And then for the button, I think, you know what, not even for the button, but on this parent article, we're going to give it a class name, and we're going to say text-center, which is going to push everything to the center when I save it right around there. Okay. Now I just realized that this is a mistake because I want this to come here. So even on large screens, this behaves like a block element. I don't want that to happen. So the way we're going to fix that is this. We're going to go inside the superscript, going to give it a class name, and I'm going to give it a class name of inline. So display inline. There you go. And that should bring it somewhere here or not. Is it because of the width? Let's reduce this width to 60 maybe. Let me see how that looks. Okay, so it doesn't behave as I'm expecting. Let me put it on hold for a moment so that I can fix these other things. Now inside the parent article, I want to add a margin on the bottom of 8 or of 16 rather, to push it away from this second article which has this image, so that there's a bit of space here. And then on this paragraph, which is this one, I'm going to give it a class name of text white and text large to make it bigger than this other paragraph and to make it whiter. And then I'm also going to say font bold, and then I'm going to give it a margin on the Y of 8 to push it downwards just a bit, and to add a bit of margin on the bottom as well. And then let me say, is it centered? It is centered, so I'm going to say text-center. Text center to center it. And then what I want to do is on large screens, I want to give it a text of XL just to make it a bit bigger, so that when I increase this to larger screens, then we're going to have this growing bigger. And in fact, it's even bigger. So let's say 3XL. So let me say not 3, but 2XL. Or maybe 3XL. Maybe. Yeah, we can work with that. We can work with that. And then we need to increase the line height just a bit. Now let me limit all of this so that this doesn't go so much to the ends. This max width needs to be a bit smaller. I'm just realizing. So let me see. Let's go ahead and say that for this section, we're going to give it a class name and say that the max width for this is going to be 3XL. How large is that? How large is that? Oh, max width, not max 3XL. Max width dash 3XL. A bit too small. Let's say 4XL. Maybe. How does 5XL look like? I think let's use 5XL, and then let me give it an MX of auto, so margin on the left and right of auto, which is going to push this to the center. That looks nice. And then let's give it a padding on the Y of 20 to push it downwards just a bit. Let me see. This text is bigger, so we need this to be bigger as well. Let me place this full screen for a moment. So this part here, I'm going to say that for 2XL screens, then the text should be 7XL, just to make it a bit bigger. Now, why isn't this coming here? Display inline, or let me remove this, and then let me go inside the H1, because the H1 is the parent, and then let me display this as a flexbox. What happens to this? Okay, that happens. I did not want that to happen. And so you know what, instead of this being a superscript, let me change it into a span. Let me see how it looks. And that happens. Now let me remove this class of flex, and this happens. And so you know what, I know that Next.js does allow us to style this image component. So let me try something. Let's go inside this image component, give it a class name of inline. What happens to that? And okay, now let's do this. Right after this part, let's add in a line break. So line break like so, and this should break the line here so that it comes here. There we go. Would you look at that? And even on mobile, this is how it's going to look. Now I want to reduce the size of this image. Maybe let me go, where's the image? Here. Let's reduce this to 40. and we should have something. Okay, that's too small. Let's say 50. And then for the image, I want to give it a negative margin on the top so that it moves upward just a bit. So I'm going to say minus margin top of 8, which is going to push it upwards just a bit. There we go. That's looking nice. And then I want to increase the line height for this H1. It's too tight. So let me go here and say leading dash what? Leading what? 8 maybe? How does that look? No difference. Leading dash 10. How does that look? No difference, really? Then let's say leading dash what? Relaxed. Is this even working? Is this even working? Really? I don't think that's working, maybe because of the classes we have added inside here. So let me not dwell on that too much, but I do want to fix this paragraph because this paragraph shouldn't go all the way to the end. So let's go inside here and then let's give this a max width of XL maybe. Let me see how small that is. Okay, and then let's say MX auto, which should now center it here. There we go. That's looking nice. It should be bigger, so let me say this. Let me say that for large screens, then the text should be 2XL. How big is that? I think that's actually almost the same size. It's almost the same size. And then let me give it a custom style here and say line height, and then set this to 2. Let me just see whether I can change that up a bit. And then 2 is a bit too much, so let's say 1.8. So 1.8. I don't by the way, I just realized that I can probably do this to this heading as well. So let me paste it here, and then let me just save it as 1.8 to see whether there's going to be any difference. Okay, that is too big. Let's say 1.4. Reduce it just a bit. Yeah, I think 1.4 works. 1.4 does work. And then now for this part, we don't need to do anything because this is already looking nice as it is. Now we can move on to the next sections, which are these 3 of them. So for this one, let me just say I'm going to create a component that is called grids. So here I'm going to say a component that is called grid, and that is my phone once again. And so inside grid, let's go ahead and say RFC once again, and then change this to a capital G, and then let's return a fragment. Now the way we're going to structure this is we want to build out one part of this. So because we know that this is one grid, and then there's another one, and then this is another one. So rather than building all of them out at once, I want to build one of them, and then we're just going to copy paste and then change the directional layout. So the way we're going to do that is we want to create a parent for all of this, and then we're going to create an article inside here and another article which is going to house our image and our text. And you can use articles or you can use divs. I just prefer to use articles so that it gives me some kind of hierarchy. So we're going to say this section is going to be the parent for all of them all the way to the bottom. And then inside here, we're going to have individual divs. Now the divs are going to be the containers for this section. So one of this section is a div, and then this other section is a div, and then the third one here is also a div. Now what we want to do is inside these divs, we want to have 2 articles. So the first article in this case is going to be the H2 that has this. So let me copy that and say an H2 is going to be this. And then below this, we're going to have a paragraph, which is this. So copy and paste. And then below this paragraph, we're going to have a button with a class of btn that says start learning. And then we're going to have another article, which is going to be this image. So below this article, let's create another article. We're going to give it the image component. The source for this image, I'm just going to call it grid 1. And then the width for this is going to be 700. And the height for this is also going to be 700. Now let's go ahead and import this image. So I'm going to say import grid 1 from art slash not components but images / layout 1 .png. And then let's also remember to import the image component. So import if I can type it. So import image from next/image, and then let's save this. And then inside our page.js, let's go ahead and render the grid, and then we should be able to see something on the screen, even though it is going to look horrible. So we're going to have that, and then our image loads in. So that looks nice. Now let's begin to style it out. So we know that on mobile, we want it to look like it's stacking one on top of the other, beginning with the image and then this one. So the way we're going to do that is I'm going to open this up, and then inside our grid, we want our image to start first. So this technically needs to come on top. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to give this a class name of flex, which is going to place them in raw form by default. So we don't want this to happen. So we're going to say flex column, but flex column is going to place the text first. We want the image to come first. So we want the order to be reversed. So we're going to say flex column reverse, which is going to bring the image on top, and then the text is going to be on the bottom, as you can see. And then we're going to say item center just to center it well. So items center. And then inside the h2, let me give this a class name of, and I'm going to say text-3xl, and then flat screens text-5xl. And then on this paragraph, and I just realized that the paragraphs, I misjudged them. So what I'm going to do is inside our global CSS where we have our paragraphs, I want to give them a custom font size of 20 pixels, which is just going to make all the paragraphs a bit larger. And we're going to have that's looking much better. Now let's go back into our grid, and then inside the h2, let's give it a margin bottom of 8, which is going to push it downwards. And you know what, I also want a margin on top. So instead of this saying bottom, I'm going to say margin y, which means margin on the y-axis of 8, which is going to push it downwards just a bit. And then on this paragraph, we're going to say give this a class name as well, and say margin bottom of 8, which is going to push it downwards from this button. Now once we have that, we just need to duplicate this for the second and the third ones. Now I do realize that this looks horrible, but I don't want to fix it just yet. I just want to add in this remaining articles. So let me copy this, and you know what, that's even the wrong one. Copy this div, copy, and then paste it 1 and then 2, and then let's begin to change the text. So the text for this second one says this, so copy and then paste it here, and then copy this text and then paste it here, and this needs to be inside another paragraph. So let's place another paragraph here, and then this, when you say this yellow thing here, remember to change it into an actual apostrophe, otherwise NextJS is going to give you issues when you're deploying it. And then the button here says, oh, this one doesn't have a button, so let's remove this button. And then let me see, we have the image, that the image now needs to say grid 2 so that we get the second image. So let's just go ahead and import all 3 images. So change this to grid 2, change this to grid 3, change this to layout 2, and this to layout 3. And then we can go ahead and change this into grid-3. And then let's change the text. So the text for this one says this. It doesn't have an h2, so we can remove the h2. And then the paragraph text says this one, so paste it in. And that looks okay. Let's remove this space. And it doesn't have a button either, so let's remove this button. And then the image is going to be this one. And then this part just says ready to dive in. So let's go ahead and save our work, and then let's see what we have on the screen once it loads in, and we should be able to see an image here and then another image here. I'm just realizing that this text is a bit too big, this one, so let's reduce it. So everywhere that we have text 5XL, let's remove it. And then here as well, let's remove 5XL. So it's going to be just a bit smaller. Now, the way we want to do this is we are going to go ahead and say, and by the way, you've realized this horizontal scrolling, that is because of the header that we have on top. It's because of this part. We're going to fix it in a moment. Now, we know that on mobile, the images come first, right? So that's looking okay. Now, what I want to change is I just want to increase the gaps, maybe just to increase the gaps a bit, and then maybe push the text inwards. So the way you can do that is we can just go inside this section, give this a class name of grid, and grid columns dash one, grid columns dash one with a gap of 8, gap of 8, just to separate out the content just a bit. Not so much, but just a bit. And then let's center all of this text. So let's go inside this section once again, and let's just say text dash center, which is going to center all of this text right there. And then on large screens, I want the text to go back to the left. And then now we can begin to style this out for large screens. Now for large screens, the way we're going to do this is we're going to go inside this first div, and then I'm going to say that for large screens, then the flex should go back into row, which is going to restructure, where is it? This one. Now let me see. Flex row, what does it do? Flex row does this. Now see how this text is just too much. It's expanding all the way to here. The way you fix that is by going inside the parent elements, the ones that have flex on them, which means the articles here, and giving this a class name of flex-1, which means flex grow 1. It takes up 50% of the container in which it is placed, and then doing the same thing on the second item. And when I do that, then it's going to resize. So that's looking okay. That's looking okay. And then let's increase this gap. So right around here, let me say that for large screens, then the gap should be 16, which is just going to increase this gap just a bit. And then let's go ahead and say for the second, where is it? For this second one, come on, where's that class? I just wrote it off, this one. So just going to copy these classes and then place them on this div, and then also place them on this div because it's basically the same thing. And then we're going to go ahead and copy this class of flex1. So copy this one, paste it on this article, and then on this article, and then paste it on this article, and then paste it on this article. Save it, and we should be having something like this. Would you look at that? Looking terrible. Now what we want to do is this image needs to come here. So the way we do that is for this second div is we don't say flex row here, but we say flex row reverse for large screens, which is going to bring the image here and then the text here. And that's that. Would you look at that? Looking nice, nice, nice. And then now the next thing that we need to do is we need to build out this part, so ready to dive in. And for that, you know what, because I don't want to create a separate component for this, so let me just go below this section, and then below this section I'm going to create another section with an h2 that says this text. So copy and paste it in, and then below this h2 I'm going to have a button with a class of btn that says join community. And then let me see, actually that's it. So we can save it, and then on the bottom we should be able to see this part. So let's go inside this section, give it a class name of text center, and then on this h2 we're going to say give this a class name, and I'm going to say text-4xl, and then for large screens text-6xl with a margin bottom of 8 to push away from the button. And we are going to have that. Would you look at that? It's looking nice. And then let's have a padding on the y of 20 here, just so that it can push away from this top part and then from the bottom part as well. And then let's go ahead and create our footer. Now our footer looks pretty decent, so let's go ahead and create a new component here called footer.js, and then let's say rfc, change this to capital F. Now for our footer, we're going to do this. We're going to return a fragment and then a footer element. And then for the footer element, we want to add our image. So I'm going to add a div here, and then add in the image component. The source for this is going to be the logo, which I'm going to import. The width for this is, I can't remember what I used on the header, so let me check. So I used 150 and 150. So let me just copy this, paste it here. And you know what, let me just also copy these two because I know we're going to need them. Change the order, and then let me paste them here and change the order. And then below this div, we're going to have terms of use and privacy policy. So we're going to have a UL with two list items, which are going to be buttons because they're not linking anywhere in our website. So I'm going, the first one says terms of use, and this is camel, and then the second one says privacy policy. And then below this UL, we're going to have another UL. Is it a UL? Actually, no, it's a paragraph. Let's have it because it's basically text. So let's just copy and paste it here. So copyright, and we're going to have that. So let's save it, and then let's go inside our page.js. Let's render our footer, and then we should be able to see our footer somewhere here. There we go. So let's style this out. So to begin, we're going to go inside the footer. We're going to give it a class name, and I'm going to say border on the top, and then I'm going to say border. So now let me say border top just to see where it's going to go. Should be right there. Now I don't want this white color, so I'm going to say border dash slate dash maybe like 700. So there's our border, and then let's give it a padding on the Y of 8 to push it away from this border and to add a bit of spacing here. And then for the footer, how does this look on mobile? Let me check. So it's basically a flexbox. So we're going to do this. We're going to say display this as a flexbox with flex wrap, so that when it reaches the end, of the screen, then it's automatically going to go into the next line. And then I'm going to say justify between and items dash center. And then for this second one, I'm going to say give this a class name of flex with a gap of 8, gap dash 8. And we're going to have that. Would you look at that, looking nice. And then I want to reduce the size of this paragraph. So for this one, I'm going to say give this a class name, and I'm going to say text dash small. Actually, small is a bit too small, yeah. So let's say text base, which is the normal 16 pixels, and we're going to have that. And on mobile, this is how it looks. So when it reaches the end, because of flex wrap here, when it reaches the end, it automatically goes into the next line, so that you don't have something like this. So add in flex wrap, and it's going to take up the actual space of the text that you have, and then when it reaches the end, it goes into the next line. Obviously, now we just need to separate out this a bit, so we can do that by just adding a gap of about 4 here, which is going to push this downwards. There we go. So this is our mobile site looking nice. All we need to do is just fix this top part. So for the top part, let's go back into the header. We know that all of this doesn't show on mobile. So for the nav, we're going to give this a class name, and we're going to say that by default it's going to be hidden, but on large screens we want it to be a block element. And I don't know whether this should be large screens or medium screens, because medium screens should be able to contain all our text. So once you hide that, you can see that now this shows up almost correctly, but you know that on mobile this doesn't show up either. So we can do the same thing on the second button. So copy this, and on this second button, actually let me just copy these classes, so this ones, and then let's paste them here, which is going to do the same thing on the second button right there, so that now I can increase this on medium screens. Actually not, yeah, this still looks ugly, so let me just say this should be on large screens, and then this one should be on large screens, so that now when I increase it, so this is how it looks on mobile, this is how it looks on tablet, and then on computer screens, then the navigation bar appears. That's looking okay. Now the next thing that we need to do for this project is I want us to build the login page, which is here. So the login page is this one right there. So I just want us to build a simple form here, adding these buttons, and then this entire thing is an image. So we're just basically adding in this image. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and create a new page here. Now the way we create pages in Next.js is we just go ahead and add them inside our app folder. So inside our app folder, if I go ahead and add in a new page that is called sign-in, I should not, that's actually the wrong way to do it. Let me create a new folder. I can create a new folder. So let me explain this a bit better so that I don't even confuse myself. So if I were to create a new folder here and I call this folder login, then inside this login page, I would need to have a file that is called page.js, which is going to act as the entry point for the login page. So that if I say RFC here and I change this into a capital P, and I call this login page, if I save it and then I go into a route that is called /login, which is the name of my folder. If I go into this route, then if it works, I should be able to see login page as the text, which is right here. See that right there? So this is basically the same logic that we want to use for the sign-in page. So we're going to change this. We're going to rename this. Let me rename it into sign-in. And then the page.js inside is going to remain, but I want to change this into sign-in. And then let me change this. Actually not, this should remain as page. And then this is going to say sign in page. And then now this is going to break because this part no longer exists, right? So if I go ahead and go into this sign in page, then I should be able to see sign in here. So that's basically the same thing that I want to do. Now inside the sign in page, I want to go ahead and add our header. Actually, do we need our header? We don't need our header. So what we need to do is, instead of rendering this, we want to first get our image. So I'm going to say import image from next image. And then I want to get our actual image. So I'm going to say import hero from art /images / what did I call it? I called it login.svg. So I call it login.svg. And then let me go ahead and return a fragment here. And then I'm going to return a section. Now this section is going to be 2 articles. So the first article is going to be the form part, so this part, and then the second article is going to be this one. So let me add in first the image because the image is the easier one. So image, and then I'm going to say the source for this is going to be the hero that I've just imported, and then the width for this is going to be 1400, and then the height for this is going to be maybe like what, 1200. Now when I save this, we should be able to see something here, which is our big image showing up. There we go. So there is our image showing up. Now let's go ahead and start to build out our form. Now this height of 1200 is a bit too big, so let me reduce it to 900. I think that should reduce it or something, hopefully. So let's go ahead and inside here, I want to create a UL with 3 list items, and these 3 list items are going to be buttons. Now they're going to be buttons for these 3 buttons. So we know, I think I installed a package that is called React Icons right here. If you did not install it, just go ahead and open up your terminal and say npm install react-icons, and it's going to install it for you. Now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and grab these 3 icons, or rather these 2 icons. So let me go into React Icons. I can't remember the link to their website, but it's going to open up anyway. So React Icons, let's open this up. I want to get the GitHub icon, and I can use, which one is close enough? I can use this one. I can use this one. So let me use this one. So you can just click on it, which is going to copy it to your clipboard. And then inside here, I want to go ahead and render our icon as a component, and remember to import it. So let me say import this, and remember it is a named import, so it needs to be inside curly brackets. This is coming from React Icons /AI, because that is the name of the icon. And then let's go ahead and say we want to get the Google icon. So Google, we're going to grab this one. So FC Google, once again render it as a React component. And then let's go ahead and say import FC Google from React Icons /FC. And then below this, we don't need any other icon. We don't need another one because this one doesn't have an icon. So let me just go ahead and say this, the text for this says Google. This one says GitHub. So GitHub, capital H. And then this one says user login. Now, obviously, this form is not going to be functional for us. So we're just building up the UI. Now, below this article, once we have that, we're going to have in this paragraph here. So let me add it. Let me just add it below this and say a paragraph that says or. And then below this, we're going to create a div, and then this div is going to be the parent for our form. So inside this div, we want to create a form that has no action. And then inside this form, we want to create an article. And then we're going to have a label. And the label is going to be this right here. So email. So label for email. And the text says email with an asterisk. And then below this, we're going to have an input with a type of email, with a name of email, with an ID of email, with a placeholder text that says enter email address. And then we can close this out, and we can set it to required just to add in some bit of HTML5 validation. And then let's copy this and paste it downwards. This second one no longer says email, this one says password. So just say Control D, which is going to select every corresponding word or corresponding similar word, and then change this to password, and then change this to a capital P password. And then we're going to have a button here that says sign in. But notice how this says forgot password. This is a link. We can add it in by doing a bit of restructuring. Once again, we can grab this, and you know what, I can do this. I can say that this is going to be a paragraph, and then place in our label, and then place in a span here that says forgot password. And you know what, rather than being a span, let's set it to be a button so that it is clickable. So paragraph, and then the label, and then the button, so that when I display flex on this, then it's going to place this end to end. And then below this, we're going to have a button with a class of btn. Now I know the class of btn is going to be orange, but I don't want to style this with another button class. You can do that if you want. And then the button type here is going to be submit, and then here the text is just going to say sign in. Now I'm going to go ahead and save this. Hopefully nothing breaks, and we should be able to see our form somewhere on top. There we go. So there it is. Now let's go ahead and begin to do all this out, to style it out. The first thing I want to do is I want this to display as a grid, so 2 items. So I'm going to go inside this section, give this a class name, and I'm going to say display this as a grid with grid columns -2 with a gap of 8 maybe, which is going to bring this here and here. That's looking okay. And then let me go ahead and say what items the center. Is it item center or place item center? Okay, that works. Now remember we added what did we add? We added something on the body. We added a max width on the body. This one, see this right here, this is now messing us up because this image needs to go to the end. So if I remove it, then it should fix this, where it fixes it. But if I go back to the home page, then our home page now breaks. The home page is this one. So our home page now technically breaks. See how our header looks like? And now look at this. So we should fix that as well. That means that now I don't need to add this on the body, but I need to add it inside components. Now an easy way to do this is, let's just go ahead and copy this style. So copy, and then cut this out. And then inside our page.js file, so inside here, we are going to add in a div, and then give this div these class names. Class name. So that now these components are going to have these limits on them. So that now if I go back to the home page, then this doesn't need to be here. Once it resets, then the home page goes back to normal. And then if I go into the sign in page, sign in, then our sign in page no longer takes up these classes, and then we can style it out as we want. So let's go ahead and do that. So now let's save this, and then inside our sign in page, and I should probably build this for mobile first. How does this look on mobile? Okay, so on mobile the image disappears and then this is centered, but on desktop the image appears. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's just go ahead and inside the second article, this one, so let's add a space. We're going to say that on mobile by default we want it to be hidden, and then on large screens we want it to be a block element. so that now on smaller screens right around here, the image is hidden. I mean, is this going to reset sometime today? Okay, there we go. So it is hidden. And then we can begin to start this out actually, because we need this to be centered. So let me go inside our article, maybe our article. And this should no longer be 2, but this should be 1. And not, I don't even need this to be here because it's the only item anyways. And then we don't need this gap, but I can say that for, not for large screens, but I can say place item center. And that should bring it to the center, does it? Okay, that brings it to the center, but then I can add a height of screen here, which is going to bring it to the center. Because a height of screen is 100 viewport heights, so it takes up 100 viewport heights and then places the content to the perfect center. So let's go inside this URL, give this a class name, and we're going to say this class name is going to be flex and then item center, and then justify center with a gap of 2. And then for this button, we're going to give this a class name of bg blue dash 600, and then text dash white, and then padding y of 2, padding x of 4, rounded dash large. And then what? On hover, we want the bg to be blue dash 700. And then let's add a transition of all and a duration of 150 milliseconds, which is going to change this into a blue color. There we go. And then we need this icon and the text to be on the same line. So first of all, let's reduce this to text dash small. And then we can now change this to a flex box, which is going to bring this one into raw form. And then to push this image downwards, the icon downwards just a bit, let's say items dash center. And then let's add a gap of 2 just to separate it out from this text. We're going to have that. And then now let's copy the class names of this button and paste them here, and then paste them here. But for this third button, we don't need these class names of flex, so we can remove them. And then we don't need what? The third one actually is transparent. So the third one is transparent. So for the third one, on hover, we want the opacity to be 75. And then here we want the bg to be transparent, bg transparent. And then we want to have a border, and then a border, a border dash blue dash 600. That should do it. So let's save it and then let's see. And we have that looking nice. And then for this one, let's give this a class name. So class name, let's say text dash small and text dash center and margin y of h, which is going to bring this somewhere here, and add a margin on the top and bottom. And then for this form, we want the label here to have a class name of text white and font bold and text small, and then margin bottom of 2 to push away from the input just a bit. And then we want it to be a block element so that it comes on top of the input. There we go. And then let me copy these class names and place them on the second label, which is this one right here, and save it, which should now bring this label there. Okay. And then once we have that, how do this input look like? So the inputs are slightly gray. Okay. So let's do this. For the input, I'm going to give it a class name and say bg slate 400, and the placeholder text is going to say placeholder dash slate dash 600. And then let's say padding y of 2 and padding x of 4 on the input with a rounded border, with a border and a border of slate dash 600. Let's save that. And then the width should be full as well, so width dash full. This color looks ugly. It looks ugly. So let's say this, because it is ugly. Let's say bg slate 600. Is it the opposite? Bg slate 600, and then the placeholder slate 400. I don't want to do a lot of optimization for it, so I'm just going to leave it at that for the inputs. And then let me copy these classes and paste them on this bottom input for the password. And then we are going to go inside the form. Remember, the form has one article and then this other article and then the button. So I want to do this. I want to give this a class name, and I'm going to say display this as a flex box with a flex column with a gap of 4 to separate out this part just a bit. There we go. And actually separates out even the button. So let me increase this to maybe 6. I think 6 should be okay. Now we have this sorted and we have this sorted, so we need this to come here. So remember how we placed it inside the paragraph right here? We're going to go inside this paragraph, give this a class name of text white, and then flex, and then item center, and then justify between, which is going to bring this here and right there. And then I'm going to reduce this to text small, which is going to reduce the size of this. I don't know whether it affects this. It doesn't. And then for here, let me say margin bottom of 2, so that now I can remove this from here, and I can also remove this, and then I can also remove this, because the label here should take up the classes of the parent, and the parent in this case is the paragraph. There we go, looking nice. And then let me see, so this is the password, and then this is the sign in button. So that's actually it for the mobile. Now we just need to scale this up for large screens, so right around here. Now here we need this. So this looks like a flex box. It doesn't look like a grid. So let me place this full screen, and then we're going to go inside here, and we're going to say that for large screens we want this to be a flex box. What happens? That happens. Okay. And then we're going to say this. This is an issue. Let me just use grid. So for large screens, because we already have grid here, I can say that for large screens, then the grid column should be 2. And then actually, would you look at that? That actually fixes it. I mean, we can get this to move a bit to the left so that it looks closer to the design, but this looks okay as well. So would you look at that? Now all we need to do is just link our navigation so that when you click on the login or the get started button, then it goes into the sign-in page. So the way we do that is by going inside the header. So inside our header file, we need to import link. So import link, capital L, from next/link, which is basically the href in Next.js. And then on the login, now this is no longer going to be a button, but it's going to be a link, and it takes in an href, and the href for this goes into the sign-in, so that we can actually do this. And you know what, we can do that for this one as well. So link, and then href is going to be /sign-in, and then save it. And then now when I click on this, once it reloads, hasn't it reloaded? There we go. So that when I click on this, now it goes into this page, and then I can go back. Now this page doesn't has a back button. You can add it in if you want, but I'm not going to do that. So if I go back, then it goes to this page, and when I click on this, it goes the same thing. Now I also want the link to link to what? I guess this button and maybe this button. So let me copy this part, and then let's go inside this, the ready to dive in. So it should be inside the grid. So inside grid, and it should be ready to dive in. So this button, join community. So paste this in, and then change this into link. And then you can go here and say control spacebar, which is going to give you this drop down, and then you can just select this one that imports it from next link, and then save it. And then we should be able to click on this, and you can see that it takes us to this page as well. And then I want to do that for this button also. So it is going to be this button, this one. So paste in your link, change this into link, and save it. And when I click on this, once it reloads right there, when I click on it, then it takes me to this page, looking nice. So that is going to be the end of the project. So all I need to do now is just deploy this to GitHub. So let me open up my GitHub, and then I'm going to create a new repository. So this new repository, I'm going to call this iRecreate Veroskills. And then let's create a repository. Now we can close our server, make sure that we don't have any errors. That's looking okay. And then let's begin to add all of this in. So once it creates the repository, then we can copy this link. So you can just click on this button, and then, oh, my terminal was not opening. Let's close all of this. Why are you not opening? Really? Okay, there we go. So let me say git add package star, which is going to add both package JSON files, and then also git commit. And what did I install inside here? What did I install? I installed React icons. Was that all? Oh, okay. So let me say install React icons, and then inside the source folder, let's say cd source, and then git add images, and then say git commit. These are the images, and then git add what did I add inside here? Let me say git add components, and I'm going to say git commit -m, and I'm going to call this homepage components, and then I'm going to cd into my app folder, and I'm going to say git add sign -in, and git commit, and I'm going to call this sign in page, and then git add globals.css, and git commit, and I'm going to call this global css styles, and then git add layout.js, and I'm going to say git commit. Inside here we updated the title and description, and then git add page.js, and I'm going to say git commit, and this one I'm going to say render homepage components. There we go. And okay, this error is bothering me. You can leave it, but let me just show you in case you encounter an error. What you do is git commit --amend, which is going to open up a file for you here with your commit, and you can just make the necessary changes that you want, and then when you save it and close it, then it's going to commit a new message for you. You can see that now it is looking nice. And then I'm going to say git remote add origin, and remember the link that you pasted in, you can paste it in, and then git push -u origin main, which is going to push it to our remote repository. So let's just wait a moment. And there we go. So that now if we take a look at our remote repository, then we should be able to see this right here. And you can see that I started this project last week. Remember where I encountered the issue with our logo just as we were beginning? So it took me like 2 minutes to realize what was wrong, but it is only a week later that I've got the time to record the actual video. But because of the power of editing, you're not even going to be able to tell the difference. So yeah, that is going to be the end of the video, and if you enjoyed it, then please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.